Good day, everybody. In this video, I'll be talking about job hunting tips specifically for the finance field with a focus preferably on systematic trading in the finance world. And this is done globally. Um, I've basically focused on English speaking countries with or without a visa and just wanted to give you my experience over the last couple of months, what I've been seeing. So, first thing is, these are global, as I said. I'll introduce you to the countries and what I found. So these are from within, preferably, and I say preferably, you see what I mean, is the preference obviously being hedge funds, banks, quant, or HFT shops, etc. Also, note that this was done from Thursday night to Friday, so there weren't as many jobs posted as opposed to if you start from Monday night to Tuesday morning and so on. So this is going to be the lowest volume of jobs per over a given work week. More jobs. Just as a general trend, what I'm finding globally, there's more jobs now that have hybrid, but a lot of them are, you can tell, are pushing for people to be on site 5 days a week. I think there's going to be more of that over the next few months. The other, from a tech side, skills side, easily C++ is king. I read on, this is where Reddit gets useless, is that, oh, C++ is going to die. Nowhere close. C++ really rules the roost here in a lot of the jobs, and they're the best paying. I mean, of course, there's Java, Python. I'm seeing less and less Microsoft related. Um, about 10, 15 years ago, you'd probably see a 50-50% split between Microsoft related tech and the rest, maybe being in the Linux, Unix world. It's, yeah, Microsoft's losing some market share there, I guess. A lot of these jobs are now, as a trend I'm seeing, are requiring a master's degree, and obviously some are preferring the PhD. I wouldn't be surprised as time pushes on. There will be a preference for PhD. A lot of schools are pumping out PhDs now versus, let's say, 10 years ago. So that's a general trend, and I wouldn't be surprised it'll be like that. So I've only used LinkedIn. It's probably the number one way to look for proper jobs, unless you're going through a recruiter. My simple strategy was simple. I was looking for the Python keyword over a 24-hour period using LinkedIn Easy Apply. Okay, so that's the parameters I put in for these results from a comparative standpoint. And some people may say, well, that's not great. This is just to educate you from a very, very high level on what I'm seeing out there in the job market in this space. There's probably better strategies, i.e., if you're coming out of an Ivy League school with really strong work experience or tech experience, obviously you're going to be registered with one of the better um, recruiters out there. But this is just from a high level, from outside of those spheres view. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is the US. Obviously, US is the biggest on the planet. When I did a search, I got over 3,282 search results that met those LinkedIn search requirements. Now, from a quantitative firm perspective, these do without doubt have the highest salaries out there. Now, if you can handle the political and social culture wars that's been going on, really been plaguing the US for years, then yeah, you might want to go and work in the US. I could probably go after US jobs if I really wanted to, but when you're barraged with questions based upon during the application process, what is your ethnicity? What are your preferred pronouns? I mean, those are real turnoffs. I think those are really meant for younger people as well, like more fresh grads. For me, it just shows you what it must be like working in these job environments now. Not what I'm from what I'm used to, and if that's the direction it goes, it's just the direction it goes. But to be serious, the only companies that are really pushing this are both Canada and US, and they're really pushing it Fortunately, the rest of the world have not caught on to this, which is good. So this is why I'm not really interested in the US. That's just my personal experience and worldview, I guess you could say. Also, without a doubt, Chicago and New York always pay the highest anywhere. You'll see that there is a saving grace out there, I believe it towards the end. The one thing that the US has is that they're very innovative. So a lot of the big tech firms are there as well. So that's the good thing about the US. And then I also heard that there's certain states are bringing out laws where they have to declare the salaries publicly in the job description. So you're not going to get scenarios, and it's happened to me quite a few times where you go through the interview process, pretty grueling, I might add. Then they give you the letter of offer, and it's like, oh, congratulations, you're now going to make $35,000. And it's like, if you knew the salary up front and the range, and some of the ranges I've seen can be as big as 100,000. And that's all determined based upon your education, your work experience, and how you rack up against the competition. And then there's generally some really cheap ass companies out there, some employers that just don't want to pay. And I'll talk more about that about where I'm at in Toronto, Canada. Okay, so the first one we're looking at is New Zealand. I'm kind of moving from east to west. So New Zealand, culturally, from what I've seen, I like. Um, but it's a small market. It's a very small population. I think it was like 5 million or so. So there's not a lot of jobs. The one key trend you got to watch for are just generally on the region. Are there salaries in the region or the country? Generally, no. There are some companies that will list their salaries, and those are usually U.S. remote jobs from U.S. corporations that allow people in New Zealand to work for those companies that are US based on a remote basis. And that seems to be a trend I'm seeing because I guess some of these companies want to get the best that they can get. And they can easily, I mean, they're the highest paying that you'll get. So if you can get an arrangement wherever you live and you can work for a US based corporation with high pay, as I said, if you can get past the wokeness of well, a lot of these corporations that have these arrangements, if you can get beyond that, then yeah, obviously do that. So there's 29 jobs. Little competition is the other thing, because when you look at job descriptions, it will tell you the number of job applicants. So there's some okay employers. There's Google and Canva in New Zealand as well. Next one I found was Australia. You might wonder why this is here as a photo. I'll tell you. So there's 173 jobs. From what I understand about Australia, it's very difficult to get a visa or even sponsorship for foreigners. So they're trying to really protect their job market, which is good for Australians. Canada is the total opposite of that. Um, Not long ago, I remember there were no job salary postings at all for Australia. So the range on the upper end was 138 all the way up to 300,000 K. That's in Australian dollars. Um, and some were on a contractual basis paying anywhere from 900 to 1,000 K Australian uh, per day, which is pretty good actually. Um, but there's definitely lower competition than in Canada. As I said, C++ pays the highest on average. What I noticed with Australia is a lot of recruiters out there, and a lot of the jobs had no finance at all. This is why the photo exists here. I did see some of them, at least one that had a vaccine mandate still. And if you've been following that globally, I think Australia has been one of the toughest countries when it comes to these. And one thing I don't like about it is that the job descriptions are really wordy for required job skills, and it's just really confusing. Canada's like that as well, and it's a reflection of the employer as well. Because I don't know, I'm not going to get into it, but it becomes you just kind of go, oh, they must be pretty bureaucratic in that company, and that becomes a turnoff as well. As I said about this, and I'm speaking off of experience of somebody from Canada that went to Australia for a few years. They did get contracts from Australian-based companies, I think they were either living in Perth or Brisbane, where there's not a lot of jobs in those cities. But most of them were government jobs. He was not able to apply unless he was a citizen to the government jobs. Here in Ontario, you can apply as a I think that anybody can apply. It doesn't matter your status on Canadian government jobs and provincial as well. And same specifically around for the city, for something like the city of Toronto as well. Again, a lot of them were companies I didn't know. A lot of those jobs I said were recruiters. And the thing with recruiters is they'll take a pay in your cut, or they'll lower the pay after their cut. So you're kind of indirectly can be and likely getting cheated on your salary when you're getting lower. I mean, it can be from 10%, 15%. I've heard it can be as high as 30%. That's pretty steep on why you're selling yourself short when you go through these recruiters. So you might be best if you can get do a direct hire with the company that you're going through, because that way you're going to get paid what you should get paid, not with being involved through a recruiter. Uh, There were a lot of engineering related jobs. I mean, let's face it, Australia is a resource based country. So there's a lot of engineering related jobs. I'm not talking software engineer. I'm talking about, civil, mechanical, and whatnot. Next, we have Singapore, 116 jobs posted. Good thing about Singapore, it is obviously it's Asian based, uh, predominantly, well, I can't say, from what I saw, heavily influenced by China. There were some pretty good jobs in quant finance. Not a lot. They do pay up to 258K Singapore dollars, which is pretty well on par with the Canadian dollar. So that's pretty good. From what I saw, the competition for applications is pretty steep. I'd imagine Singapore no different uh, than Australia, getting a lot of applicants from places like India in the Mid East. I can confirm that through even my own private memberships that I have on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'd say 90% are coming from those regions. So a lot of those jobs are getting those job descriptions probably getting bombarded from those regions of the world. Um, One thing I'm trying to understand here, 116 jobs. I don't remember seeing one job listing a salary. Again, that's for the city of or the region of Singapore. That would be something I'd be considering. I don't even know what the going rate is. I could probably find out outside of LinkedIn, but it just looks suspicious, if you want my opinion, because you want to have that competition to see what certain companies are going to pay. I mean, like I said, there's a rare one that will say this, but unlike what I'll talk about the UK, and the US is the same. They do a lot of the jobs do pay do show their what they're offering and the range as well. Some of them, but here I didn't see it as much. Um, it must be really hard to get a visa in Singapore. That's what I came away with it. But the funny thing is, out of 116 jobs, specifically for a high frequency trading operation in Singapore, because these firms are looking for highly specialized, highly talented coders, highly talented mathematicians coming out of like Ivy League schools. So of course they'll go above and beyond to find these exceptional people and bring them in, offering and paying for their relocation and probably giving them top dollar. So those jobs do exist. They're not abundant, but they do exist somewhat. Um, here's a tidbit I wanted to know. When I was researching this back in '08 during the financial crisis, I was really seriously considering to go to Singapore. A lot of people may not know this, but I will tell you from what I saw, it was a highly racist society in Singapore back in those days. And that might be somewhat surprising for people. But when you see buildings that say Indians only or blah 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 region only, I mean that's what I saw back in the day back then. And I just lost interest in Singapore because of that. Obviously, Singapore is a different region now, um, so it's totally up to date like the rest of these places. Some of the big companies you may know are more Asian based. Shine, Shein, China, TikTok, Gemini's got some jobs there as well. And again, this does not represent, I'm sure there's other big companies there, but this is just over a 24-hour period of the jobs that I looked at. I mean, I'm looking at these jobs quite a bit, but this is just a snapshot of what I saw over the 24 hours. The next one is going to include Abu Dhabi, uh, Dubai, United Arab Emirates. So this one didn't have as much. Over the time I've looked at this region for the UAE, there was one or two companies out there. They're a global New York based hedge fund. They seem to have a big operation. But that's all I saw. And not a lot of finance. They may be going through other resources to find people if UAE is a financial center trying to be. I'm sure they are, but I just didn't see those job postings on uh, UAE anywhere, and they seem to be fewer than definitely Singapore. As I said, that must have been a bad day for postings. Little results, and mostly over the time when I look at, it's mostly engineering related. Obviously, Dubai, oil rich and that sort of thing. So it's probably related around that type of industry. Next up, which I like a lot, is Switzerland. 105 results on those parameters at the beginning I talked about. From what I've seen, a lot of the jobs, I'll just say this. Out of all the jobs and regions I've applied to, Switzerland's been the most responsive. Shockingly, some have actually commented on my resume, which is good. And that's encouraging. Thing is, there are some jobs in Switzerland that are English based as a corporate policy. They only want English to be spoken as the first language. And it's not all companies, but some companies. There are other job descriptions in German or French, and obviously that tells you that you need to be fairly uh, fluent in those languages. But there are some English speaking uh, corporate policy for English, and when they exist, they're yeah. I was pretty impressed that they can be more responsive over the countries I'm showing you right now. Generally, when it comes to finance, obviously with the UBS taking over Credit Suisse, so that market seems to be shrinking, but there's still finance jobs there. There's some trading firms like broker firms. There are trading operations. A big one is commodity trading, be it gold, be it metal. So there's quite a bit of that, and that would be just as a good job as if you were hitting up London or New York. I would think the pay would probably be as good, even though Switzerland's quite expensive to live in. But I just like what I saw coming out of that. The other thing I liked about Switzerland, depending upon where you're coming from, if you're European, you can pretty well walk into Switzerland. Um, there's a trading region, a free trading region with Switzerland. I can't remember the countries. There's only four of them. I think it's Liechtenstein, Switzerland, Iceland, and Norway. So there's those, and some job descriptions only will accept those countries. Other ones will accept there's uh, uh, another agreement among the European Union countries, and I did see the UK included. So you might be able to apply for those jobs, and there's other jobs that will uh, sponsor you. So it's a whole mix mash on Switzerland. So, but when you get those jobs, they're. I was pretty impressed on what I was seeing in terms of the job descriptions and the responses I got. Not a lot, but much higher than where I'm applying Canada and UK. But I am attracted to what's coming out of Switzerland. It's really good. Now the other thing though is the no salaries thing. But again, remember that's a very tight set of parameters over a 24-hour period. Um, but just remember that the salaries are very high. I think the average was about 7,000, 5 to 7,000 Swiss francs per month, which is pretty high for a country. But again, that's to be in line with the high cost of living in Switzerland. I think the minimum wage is like close to 30 Swiss francs. I can't remember that, but listen, man, I mean, if you're older, and you can get a job like in, let's say, commodity trading in Switzerland, look at a big city, be it Zurich or Geneva, you're gonna have a good life, because you'll be well compensated and you're gonna have a high quality of life living in those countries. Now, the next place I'm gonna talk about is where I'm currently in. I've been here all my life, so obviously I know the Canadian market really well. 146 search results, which is kind of low, but again, that was just during the day of the week. Now, one thing with Toronto being the biggest city in Canada, it's probably in essence very depressing. When you look at the low wages of Toronto jobs, and the high cost of living in the city, um, there are better places, and the place to go that really surprised me, that is up with the level of the globe, like all the other countries I'm talking about, is Montreal. You can go to Montreal. Don't forget it's bilingual, French and English. Montreal, the cost of living is probably close to half of what you would pay in Toronto for a home or a condominium slash apartment slash flat. They're from the UK. And some of the jobs pay pretty good, 160K. I mean, it's kind of competitive, not highly competitive. But Toronto's really like a high paying job in Toronto, maybe 100, 110, 120K. And for the cost of living, they're not keeping up with what, let's say, cities like London, New York, where their high cost of living is. And their compensations can be as high as a million, 1.5 million for some of these jobs. So Toronto's not like that. Um, so when it comes to contractual, their day rate is even lower than Australia. There was a time where Canada was a good place, specifically in Toronto specifically. We don't, I don't see a lot of day rate. I see hourly rate. But obviously England, UK set standards on the day rate. That's been in place for a long time. And like I said, I saw some jobs with Australia, not as high as the UK, but with Australia, uh, they pay better than in Canada. Okay, or at least Toronto, I should say. 'Cause Montreal's better. And really, the big factor is two things. Well, really three: weather, um, cost of living, specifically on your housing, and your tax. Right. So those are the big factors you got to worry about Canada. But thing I'll say about Canada as a country, it's open to a lot of immigrants. They don't protect jobs like they do in Australia. So anybody in the last few weeks to months, they've had new laws where anybody really can apply to a Canadian job with no job protection for the locals. This is why I'm really leaning towards getting out of Canada. It's just everything's just fallen from the bottom in Canada. It's just everything that was a problem is 10 times worse now with the taxes and the cost of living, specifically in Toronto. If I was to stay in Toronto, I'd go to Montreal without a doubt, because you, like I said, you can buy a home there for not quite half, maybe half, depends on the direction we're going from an economic standpoint. But Toronto's definitely, out of all the cities I've looked at, definitely at the bottom of the pile, without a doubt. Currently now, which is September 2023. Things may change, but it just seems kind of just falling by the wayside. The one thing, if you're coming in as a foreigner wanting to get in the States, Canada's your point of entry. The reason for that is you can come in as a student into Canada and get educated in Canada, and then under the, I can't remember well, it's former free trade NAFTA, but the MCA, yeah, the MCA or whatever it's called, the current one, that enables you to get special visas potentially into the US. So that, especially coming out of school, if you're as a graduate or if you're working, let's say, for a US corporation and you want to get transferred into the States, that can be done as well. Canada's pretty well looked upon more positively because it's part of the North American agreement between Mexico, Canada, and US. So that's why a lot of people come here. The other big trend I like about the States, if this is what you're into, I can handle it, is and I've seen this in all the other countries as well, but US, I'm sorry, Canada and UK are seeing this the most. What's happening is, as I said earlier, that a lot of the big tech and just name brand US based tech companies, what they're doing is they're hiring for remote jobs in, let's say, Canada or UK. There's a lot of that, and they pay their local rate as if you're in the States, and they're very, very high. So the highest types of jobs you can get in Canada or even in Toronto is you have these arrangements with a US based, let's say, tech company, paying a very high rate, not as high as if you're living in New York or California, where they're expensive and their cost of living is pretty high. But from a competitive standpoint on the local front, let's say out of Toronto or Montreal, they're going to be the highest. But there's one thing you need to be very aware of, and this is what I said about earlier about the states. These are extremely super woke companies. Okay, so if you can handle that and you fall under that, then by all means. For me, being older, it's not for me, obviously. But that's why I'm focusing on the next country I've already mentioned a few times. But that's the one advantage if you can deal with Canada. Just remember, you're going to probably, under the current situation, you can pay as high as up to 58% tax, okay, on your income. So just remember that when you're in Canada, obviously you can lower that if you get into the states, into states that don't even have state tax, like Texas or wherever else. And I mean, you're saving a lot of money. So just remember that about Canada, okay? So in terms of finance jobs, there are jobs in the Canadian banks. They pay okay, but they're not going to pay what if you're working with a corresponding bank in New York or London. It doesn't compare. There is the Canadian CPBIB, I should say, Canada Pension Plan Investment Board. I can't remember what they're called now, but it's basically the former of that. The CPBIB, Canadian Pension Investment Board. I got that backwards. The Crown Corporation. They pay the going rate globally. Very good company. I've worked with them for a few months under a contractual basis. And I would have gone back full time with them, but my current vendor wouldn't allow me to go to them. So I was not able to go. And that was back in the '08 crisis as well. So they were a really good company. Now they're super woke as well, no different than the US. So you can't avoid that. One thing that is good about Toronto, it has a huge startup community as well. It's on par probably with New York, California, Silicon Valley, and so on. It's a big deal. Still is fairly strong. A lot of those jobs I find just don't quite pay as well as you think they should because the funding's not as good as if you're coming and residing in Silicon Valley. Okay. So here's where I get happy, the UK. This is where I'm born. So I have full status there with my passport. That's going to be a requirement for the UK. Part of that's part of the Brexit as well. Depending upon your view of that, if you're in my situation where you can relocate back to the UK market, especially in tech, those jobs pay a lot of money, a lot of money. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So that can work in your favor. Those high paying jobs that I talked about in the States, they easily compete what you'll see in the US, like New York or Chicago, very easily. The problem is obviously tax. But the thing is, what I saw, you can do a corporate to corporate arrangement to lower your tax. So if you're able to do something like a corporation out of Ireland and work as a foreigner in the UK, there's so many schemes out of the UK that are at your disposal to really lower your tax rate being in the UK. And a lot of these jobs obviously are in London. That's one of the financial centers in the world. outside of New York. So no matter what happens economically, London always will be top tier. New York will always be top tier as well. Personally, I prefer that job market. Obviously, London is not the most desirable place, but some of these companies do have a hybrid operation, a hybrid setup. So you might be able to arrange something to kind of not have to reside in London. Maybe go in let's just on a minimal basis. Um, so there's just so many financial jobs. I mean, some of them are actually dream jobs. I did see some jobs. One job paid higher than what I saw in the States. In Canadian, it was about $1.7 million. Obviously, I've talked about the HFT stuff in my channel on YouTube. If you can find those videos, do that. But these are great jobs. And the funny thing is, this is what I loved about it, is they had easy requirements. Now, there's two strategies for that. One, I could probably, these are for finance jobs, HFT shops, crypto, market makers, da 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 da. And they pay a lot of money. First question is, how do companies, these startups, afford this? What I can tell you, I've dealt with a few people that have gone from highly motivated to within a few years walking away with 100 million plus pounds setting up these kind of arrangements, setting up at least from my experience, the tech side. But how it works is basically a lot of these small shops, because you said the same thing with the US, is these are going to be one of two people. The people that start these kind of firms are going to be either ex bankers, ex hedge fund, um, ex something high up in finance. People that have been making a million plus per year, either have banked all that cash and or have a whole set of connections like former investors that believe in them. So they'll strike out on their own, wait it out for their contract, their competition, uh, competitive contractual obligation, wait it out, and then go back into Britain or England, set up these shops, and they're going to have the couple of ones that I've dealt with had over 10 million startup, much higher than you'll get with some of these mom and pop garage operation startups that you get out of North America. So they're well funded. They bring in really high end tech people, and these are some of the job descriptions I find. And that's how you get things. And some of these companies do extremely well. As I said, one guy that I know went from virtually zero. Well, I would say zero, but put a couple of years building out his system with a 10 million. Now, this is on British pounds. And within 2 years, walked away with a 7 digit package. Sorry, 6 digit, 100 million pounds. And just got out, made his cash and retired in, I think it's in France now. But you'll get a lot of those kind of setups. And you'll see these jobs. Like they'll pay £500,000. The highest in the of the parameters I saw, the highest I saw was £350. Okay. I've seen jobs paying as high as 650. As I said, there was one job off site that I knew about that was paying the highest, 1.7. A lot of these are C++ jobs, very high stress. And one job description, in terms of expectation, they said, you're coming in, we're paying you a lot of money. Our quant traders or research will come up with an idea. They expect that idea to be implemented, coded up within 48 hours. That's their expectation. So if it's on a Friday night, you better have your code implemented, ready to go on Sunday. So these kind of operations are not going to be your 9 to 5, get in, get out, union friendly type of operations. These are sweatshops that will drive you, but you can make a lot of money in these environments. There's so much opportunity here in England. I could say the same thing about US, obviously. I don't see it anywhere else. These are entrepreneurial driven innovators, not just in HFT or algo trading, but we're also talking like like fintech. Um, Obviously now crypto. I think crypto's died off, but the new AI or now with the Web3. Web3 is huge. Okay. So there's that. So as I said, when it comes to visas and whatnot, I have seen a lot of um, companies saying we will accept EU residents. So if you're living in the EU, you can apply. And some recruiters I've talked to will make special arrangements for EU residents to get in. Um, and that's pretty good. Now, if you're coming in like me as a Brit applying for these jobs, you got to, from what I'm seeing, you got to reside in England or the UK, then you apply for those jobs. It's not as easy to do that for me. I've got a home involved and da 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 da. So, I'm thinking of where I'm going to go, depending upon who you guys sign up as future customers to my services, and I'll have some new arrangements coming out if you're interested in that. Just see how it goes. So as I said, three. So here's the thing. Outside of the U.S., there's 809 jobs available in the UK, throughout the UK. So a lot of these jobs, these very high-paying jobs, are generally in the London area. But once you go towards the end of the list, like going into the northern UK or smaller markets, your pay salaries drop a lot. I think a lot of these are also junior level as well, like 25 to 45K. That's how England used to be. That's why I never went back to the UK because their salaries were so low that these salaries are low, like with what a bus driver in UK would make. So that's why I never applied. But the market has radically changed because of Brexit and Brexit again, how you're sitting on the side of the fence. But if you're a Brit like me, wanting to get back into the market, this is an ideal time to get in. This is an ideal time to make really big money, depending upon your job skills and how impressive you are to these operations that are in places like London. As I said, from a tax point of view, there's just so many advantages being a Brit, going back into Britain, and with this Brexit going on, with the amount of demand that is there. I can't say what the competition is because I don't know, but it's no different than anywhere else, I would imagine. But for them, they do have, from what I'm seeing, a challenge in finding talent that's British based, that has British residence status, and that shows in the salaries, and also shows in the job requirements as well, with the user requirements, which I'll get back to. So with the requirements, there's one or two things going on, especially when it comes to higher 200. There's a lot 200, 300,000 pound jobs, quite a few. Um, and what's going on there, I think, is the competition's very fierce among the firms, so they have to put out their salaries to attract people. Because if they don't put out the salaries, people are going to go, I'll pass on the next one until I find the next one that uh, has a salary in the description. Plus, the job requirements look really easy. Just know Python, you're good. If you know and have a desire and have an interest in finance, you're in. You will apply. The thing is, a lot of people may say, well, why am I not getting response if it's that easy? The other strategy might be going on. I've been told this quite a few times. Two things. A lot of these, because there's so much competition among specifically the HFT market making firms, the competition's fierce. So they don't want to publicly declare what their tech stack is. So there will not be a listing of the job requirements specifically when it comes from an API or their data provider or their framework that they're using, because they don't want their competition to know. The other thing is they will suss out all the um, job requirements. And if you meet what they have internally, but you wouldn't know publicly if um, you have those on your resume, or sorry, CV, if you're in England. Um, if you don't have those listed, you obviously get passed over. So you don't know what you're applying for. You don't know what the tech skills are, but you just apply. But if you have them, you'll get a response. So This is why a lot of the firms don't respond, or the recruiters for the firms are responding because of that. And that goes on a lot. So there's a lot of misconceptions there when it comes to these high paying jobs. You will be a slave, but you have to be very passionate about it and wanting to do it, showing that. That's part of the job description, obviously. You want to learn and go deep in your knowledge on tech when it comes to these kind of financial firms. You have to show that. The other big thing you need to list on anywhere you go, especially these woke corporations, they want to see your GitHub repository. They want to see your website. So it's no longer about your education. It's no longer about where you're working. They want to see your initiative. They want to see what projects are you working on. Are you working on just contributing some, you know, whatever open source project? I don't think that's what they go for. What they're going for is they want to see projects that you build out of interest. So let's say you want to get into these financial firms, HFT shops. What they're probably most likely are looking for are what's your skill set, let's say in C++. What projects have you built on your own? Have you built out a platform? Have you built out a strategy? And not just that, they want to see your trading results, which have to be obviously verified. If you can pull that off when you apply to these jobs and say that in a cover letter, that's the misconception. If you can, always, always, always add in your cover letter to explain what you've done, what you currently have done, why you're taking it, and showing the initiative you have to build out your own stuff. If that's the key, I think, to get one of these jobs is the initiative. You not only have to be a mathematician wizard, you have to show that you're a trading wizard, and obviously you have to show that you're a coding wizard. All three of those have to be A plus 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 plus. And hey, are you so good that you want to get your CFA? Are you so good that you're coming out of a place like MIT? And those are the kind of people these firms want. So if you don't have those skills, you can still apply, but don't cry if you're not getting the responses because you're not meeting the standards that these companies are looking for. If they're going to pay you 500,000, a million, you better have what I'm telling you. If you don't like it, don't apply. Look elsewhere and apply in some retail or some big tech firm in California or something. That's all I can tell you. Hopefully, this will help you out. If you like more, I do have my quantlabs.net/book and all that fun stuff. So, really important to know, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks again. Have a good day.